Hello my friends and welcome to my channel Maine's Mind. So today I'm going to talk to you about something that is not my usual video. My usual videos are book reviews or like time-lapse videos of my art or some kind of art tip. Um, Recently I underwent something called a uterine ablation, and before I did this I did like what most normal people do, and I scoured the internet for information, and it did have a lot of good information that was all very technical and medical. And I only found one video where the one was really talking about her personal experience, and so I thought, okay, there needs to be more out there about that. So I'm going to share my experience so that this video is just out there in the universe for anybody who's fixing to undergo this procedure and just wants to know the personal experience that another woman went through. Now, this is going to be a little TMI, so like the lady in the other video said, if you want to know this information and you're a man, because you have a mother or daughter, please stick around. But I am going to talk about menstrual cycles and stuff. And if that's a bit much for you and you're a man and you don't want to hear all that, that's okay. If you're a woman and you're watching this, you're probably getting ready to go through this, or you know somebody who's fixing to go through this. Okay, so starting now. A uterine ablation is where they go in and they stick in, they go in through your cervix and they stick this machine in there, and it unfolds like this mesh coil. And from what I was reading, it like burns. It sends out this radio energy, but it almost like burns your uterus. It destroys the inner lining of the uterus and the blood supply, so that inner lining doesn't keep building up and bleeding out. So it destroys that inner lining and its blood supply. So so that's what that is. And by doing that, they either reduce the amount of blood flow you have or completely stop it, depending on your personal body, which is preferable, especially if you're having heavy bleeding. Um, I got my tubes tied in 2013, and since then my periods were always a little wonky, but not bad. They were still pretty regular, They would just kind of come either a little lighter or a little heavier, but they were just a little weird, but not bad. Recently, though, these last few months, and I don't know if it's just because of the level of stress that I was under, ended up causing a flare up of an autoimmune disorder that I didn't know I had. And that flare up caused a whole slew of other little issues that just kind of popped up, including I feel like it messed up my cycles. All of a sudden, I started having these really weird cycles. It was like I was on my menstrual cycle for 2.5, almost 3 weeks every month. And it was like I was only off for a week or two. And my daughter was like, Mom, you're always on your cycle. And I'm like, I know. But it wasn't like constant bleeding. It was, I would get all the symptoms of it, start breaking down, be all bloated and just feeling really horrible and have this terrible headache and cramping and my back hurting and just feeling awful. And I would just be spotting for days. It would just be spotting. And then all of a sudden, with like no warning, because I never knew for sure when this was going to happen, it was like somebody turned on the water faucet and I was just heavy bleeding. And I've always been a heavy bleeder, but this was ridiculous to the point that I was having to wear a tampon and a pad and then change it every hour and a half or so just to try to prevent it from bleeding. But it got bad enough that it bled through a tampon, a pad, onto my clothes. And when I went to change it, I was passing large clots. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? So I went on ahead and I made an appointment with the doctor. I went in and I was telling him the problem. And he was like, yeah. He was like, he didn't seem particularly worried about it, but he was like, let's go ahead and do a uterine ablation. He was like, are your tubes tied? And I was like, yes. He goes, are you going to plan on having any more children? I was like, no, 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 no. I have 4 kids and I just became a grandma. So me personally, I have no desire to become a new mom at this point in my life. I'm done with that stage in my life. So I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. And he was like, okay, so let's get this done and we'll take care of the bleeding issue so you don't have to go through that. And I was like, okay, cool. And I was really excited about it because I was like, yeah, no more periods. Heck yeah. But, then I started doing my research and it was kind of scary. And from what I understand and from what the doctor told me, that's just going to get worse over time. The more I move into menopause, the more likely it was that this was just going to keep happening and get worse. And to prevent anemia and me having to run back and forth to the bathroom every time I turned around, this was his solution. I found out later from my mother that this was something that she kind of went through as well, but she started sooner than I did. I'm 39. My mom, this was earlier in her 30s. But back then, uterine ablation wasn't an option for her generation. So they went full on hysterectomies back then. And this, from what I was reading on the internet, says it's kind of like an alternative to a hysterectomy. I'm good with them not ripping parts out of my body yet, not until they have to. The day before the procedure, you're supposed to go NPO, which means you're supposed to not eat or drink anything after midnight. And then they gave me this little bottle of, it was called like Dyna something or another, but it's basically a disinfectant. It smells like alcohol pretty much, and you have to wash from the neck down. And so I did. You have to do it twice, the night before and then the morning of. And so I did that, and that's to kind of kill off your normal bacteria. So I did the body wash, and then the day of, I had to go in and register at the front, let them know, hey, I'm here, yada, yada, yada. And I went upstairs, and I had to wait. It was a lot of waiting until they pulled me back. Once they pulled me back, everything went pretty quickly. They ran a couple of IV. They started an IV. And for those who don't know what an IV is, they get a needle, and that's about an 18 gauge. It's a pretty good sized needle. And they insert it into one of your veins. And when they pull the needle out, they leave in a little catheter, a little flexible catheter. Now that little flexible catheter gives them direct access to your vein, which is important because they can run IV fluids. They can give you antibiotics. If something were to happen, an emergency, they could give you medication that would take effect like that versus trying to get it into your body other ways. So it's an important thing to have. So they started my IV. They started it in the worst place. I hate it. They started it right there at the bend of my elbow because then I can't move on. Anyways, so they started my IV, and they gave me some antibiotics, and then they came from the OR, operating room. The people in there, the anesthesiologist, she went in there and talked to me, and I signed some more paperwork, and then they rolled me back. They have you on this little bed. It's like a gurney. I don't know if you've ever seen the ones like the ambulances have, kind of. It looks something like that. Not exactly, but something like that. Anyways, they rolled that to the OR, and then I slid over onto the table because they got everything lined up and were like, okay, come this way. They were all very friendly, very nice. I was a little nervous. But honestly, I don't know how long it took for them. And for me, I'm laying there and they're like, oh, hi, I'm so-and-so. Here, let me give you this medicine. And, oh, yeah, no. And they're sitting there talking to each other. Then they're like, okay, yeah, so I'm going to put this on you. And then I don't remember nothing. It was like, okay, I'm going to put this on you. And then the next thing you know, wow, you did so good. You were such a rock star. And it was like, what? I mean, for me, it was a moment. It may have been an hour. I don't know how long it took them to do this entire procedure. But for me, it was no more than a moment. 1 minute they were putting the mask on. Next minute, I was waking up. So that was kind of nice. Now, after the procedure, immediately after I woke up, I could feel like this weight where my uterus is. And I remember laying there and telling them, oh, I remember touching my uterus and being over where my uterus would be. And I was like, oh, I'm going to need something for pain. They're like, yeah, your nurse will get you something. And the more I came out of the anesthesia, the more the pain started to set in. And it went from this heavy weight to just pain. Now, if you are a woman who has had a child and given birth and felt the full force of those contractions, it feels like the kind of contraction you get right before you're getting ready to give birth. Not the early ones that are just really uncomfortable, but like the one that's like, oh my God, I got to push kind of contraction. That kind of contraction. And it, to the point that I even felt it in my bum. I was like, am I supposed to be feeling like I need to go? And they were like, yeah, no, it's normal. And I'm like, okay, so I'm in pain and I'm feeling this. And it was like, oh, I just remember feeling like it took my breath away because the pain was like intense, and it didn't. It's not like a contraction that goes up and down and up and down. This was like straight across pain. Um, so I asked the nurse to give me some pain medicine. I was already getting really nauseated because of the pain. So she gave me pain medicine. I ended up, getting sick. She gave me some nausea medicine. And it was like no matter what she did, I could not get comfortable. I couldn't sit down. I couldn't lay down. And those beds are so uncomfortable. It didn't matter what I did. I could not get 100% comfortable. I even got up and tried walking around, and it just would not ease up. So after I had been there for a while, because they try to get you in and out pretty quickly because they've got surgery scheduled all day. And she was like, well, let's try this. And I finally just told her, you know what? I just need to go home, because she kept trying to make me comfortable, but I could see she was in a hurry, and it was just kind of like, yeah, I need to go home. I was like, I just want to go home. At this point, I had already called the doctor's office and told them I was out of surgery and I needed something for pain, and they called it into my pharmacy. So on the way home, we were able to stop and get that medicine. I didn't start feeling better. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being your worst pain, after the pain medicine she gave me, I never got below a 7, at least, because it was just really, really uncomfortable. Enough that I couldn't get comfortable no matter what I did, because it was just like, it was just like I couldn't escape the pain. It was just like, oh my God, and I remember I cried on my way home because I was like, why do I have to do this? It sucks being a woman. I had to go to birth, and I had to go through periods, and I got to go through this. And it was just like, But I was being dramatic, okay? I'll admit it. But by the time I got home, I was able to take my pain medicine, change into some comfortable clothes, and climb into bed. And there's nothing better than your own bed. You have your own little spot where you're comfortable, and your 10,000 pillows that you can bury yourself in, along with a blanket up to here. And after I was able to come home and get comfortable and lay down, my pain dropped out. I mean, it went down to a good 3 or 4, and I was okay for the rest of the night. I was able to rest and sleep. Now day 2, I woke up uncomfortable, but not in pain anymore. It wasn't like it was nothing like the day before. Like it was one day of pain, but then the next day it was like, I feel uncomfortable, let me take a little something for pain just so that I'm not so uncomfortable. But I was okay. I was able to go about my day. I think I took 2 pain pills, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And it was more just to kind of take the edge off the discomfort. I felt like I was walking like a duck because I was so uncomfortable. But it wasn't pain. And there was a little bit of discharge that day. They say that there's going to be some kind of like blood-tinged discharge, but not really bad, some spotting. That's about all I had. It wasn't anything major. I still felt sore and achy over my uterus, but like I said, the pain wasn't really there. It was just discomfort. By day 3, I felt pretty normal. I might have taken 1 pain pill that morning because I was a little uncomfortable. But by the afternoon, I was taking ibuprofen and I was good. And then day 4 and on, I was fine. Today has been a week. I went to the doctor today. He was like, yeah, you're good. No restrictions. Go back, do whatever. And I'll see you whenever you need to come see me again. And it was like, okay, cool. So probably go see him next year just for a checkup. But other than that, I'm good. He did tell me that it was going to be about a good 6 weeks before we knew for sure whether I was going to have spotting or nothing at all. So about the next cycle, give or take a little. By then, if 6 weeks pass and I don't have a cycle, then pretty much my periods have stopped, which, fingers crossed. We're going to hope for that one. If the 6 weeks come and there's some spotting, I can live with spotting. That's nothing compared to what I've been living with, so I'm good with that. So, like I said, this is just my personal experience with uterine ablation. It's something that I had done because I would have continued to live without it. I imagine if the bleeding would have continued to get worse and worse, I would have eventually had to have like a hysterectomy or something. This is a good alternative to that because a hysterectomy is a major surgery, where this one was minor. It was inpatient, in and out real quick. and the recovery time was just like a day or two, really. So whereas hysterectomy, I imagine the recovery time's a lot longer. So I mean, it's going to come down to what you think is best for you. Again, remember, I am not a medical professional. I am just telling you this from a woman-to-woman point of view so that you can take this information and do with it as you need to, or mentally prepare yourself for the procedure. I don't regret having it. Like I said, it was 1 day of pain. I can take 1 day of pain. And it wasn't even a full day. It was just a few hours. It was a few hours of pain, less than I had giving birth, because I think I was in labor for 12 hours with 3 of my kids and 10 hours with the last one. This was just not even that long. This was maybe 2-3 hours of pain. And then after that, it was nothing. So it's entirely up to you. Everybody's pain tolerance is completely different. Again, this was my experience. Make sure you check with your medical professional, sit down and have a conversation with them if you have any questions or concerns, or if you think this is something that you need done. Talk to your medical professional. They're the ones who can help guide you in this decision. In the meantime, I hope you all stay healthy. I have another procedure coming up on the 9th where they're going to do a hernia repair. You know, the joys of having children. Aside from the beautiful baby, we get all these after effects we got to deal with. Yay. So maybe I'll make a video about that too, just so I can share that experience with you all. Again, if you have any questions or comments, please comment below. And please feel free to like and subscribe and ring the bell for more great content. I'll see you all next time with my usual stuff.